would come to town, I would send those emails once I found out who what the person was doing it is, and I got on as a rosebud, like you said, a few times, and then the first thing I ever did in the ring was with Strowman.
Yeah, and that's what I guess you caught everyone's attention for. I did something like that with Heidenreich. He beat me up a long time ago. How did the thing with Strowman end up turning into a job for you?
So I did the match. Um, and when the match was over, and I felt like the match went well. It's only like a minute 29 seconds long, but every second counts, especially on television. I felt like my selling was good, and I felt like I told the story with my face, which is very important in wrestling. Like your facial expressions, which I learned from Axel, are very very important. And like I got to cut a promo before the match because they were doing a thing where Strowman was squashing guys every week, and the local talent got to say their last words before Strowman killed them. So like even laying there, I was like, man, I feel like I did a good job, which I was so happy with. Like right away, I was like, oh man, I really feel like I did well. So I get to the back. Arn Anderson, who was the agent for the match, said, hey man, like you made my job so easy tonight. Thank you very much. Vince wants to see you. And as soon as he said Vince wants to see me, I was like, oh my god, I think Vince wants to yell at me for walking down the ramp because like when you're an extra talent, and back in 2016, I don't know what happens these days, but like you're not allowed to walk down the ramp. Like you have to walk through the crowd and get in the ring and just stand there. Like you're not a star. You're not a part of the roster. Like you're a nobody basically. And so like Sasha Banks won her first women's title right before that match, and I remember like I was standing in Gorilla watching her hug Stephanie McMahon and hug Triple H. I was like so caught up in that moment because I was such a Sasha Banks fan. I was like, wow, this is awesome. It's so good for her. And that's like me being an independent wrestler, just sitting there watching her hug Triple H and Stephanie was a big moment for me. I'm like, wow, this is great to see. And you're like, hey, you're on, you're on. I'm like, oh, okay. And I just went through the curtain, and I didn't go down like there's side steps. I didn't go down the side steps and through the crowd. I went down the curtain, through the curtain, and down the ramp. And as I'm walking down the ramp, I get in the ring, and the referee, and we all call him Spider, it's his nickname. He's like, hey man, you weren't supposed to walk down the ramp. And I was like, yeah, my bad. As I'm about to do like my first Monday Night Raw match ever, I'm like, yeah. So I thought Vince was going to yell at me for that. So when I went and saw Vince, he's like, hey man, he's like, great job. Shook my hand. He said, your facial expressions were great. Your verbiage was great. Your selling was. He's like, I have no choice but to hire you, so I'll be in touch. And he shook my hand and walked away. And I was like, what? And Triple H came up to me. He's like, hey man, he's not kidding. He'll be in touch with you. It was like right away. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that is amazing. Especially after being a rosebud, I guess, and you probably had low expectations, and you just hear it's going to be a 1 minute match, which normally they would send you for the week tryout before they hire you, right?
You'll never hear me curse the name Vince McMahon, like, because he didn't have to do that. I wasn't in their plans. He didn't have to hire me. Like, he just, there's guys getting squashed all the time by, there's been guys like you said, Heinrich would squash guys. Before then, back in '93, everyone would get squashed on superstars. Ryback would squash people. These days, Veer and like Jinder Mahal's tag team that he's managing squashes people. And you don't see guys just like come be a character a couple weeks later. Like it doesn't have so like to this day, that means so much to me that Vince McMahon, who is the most successful person in wrestling history, to whatever people say about him, that has nothing to do with what I'm saying right now. Like he is single-handedly the most successful person in wrestling history. No one else has made billions with a B of dollars off of this wrestling stuff that we all do. Only him. And for him to see something in me and give me a job for a couple of years because he thought I was entertaining or I was doing every little thing the way that he likes things to be done, that's always going to be the biggest accomplishment I've ever had in this business.
No question, the company is worth more money than ever, so you can't argue his success. As far as when you were hired, were you thinking you're going to have to go to development, or were you kind of shocked when they said you're just going to be right on the main roster?
Here's how smart I kind of think I am about the business. When they signed me and they said you don't have to go to NXT, I was upset. I know that's crazy to hear. Well, James, you're right on the main roster. Like, I was hoping they would send me to the PC and NXT and all that because if they would have did that, they would have had time and money invested in me long term. Like, because, they're sending me down there to train with their people. And when, anyone that trains there was a part of NXT or the PC, WWE as a company has time and money into you. Like, so they want you to succeed. They want to help you. Like, so right away, I was like, well, I'm not going to be around long. I'm going to live my dream. I'm going to have a good time. But they're not sending me. I'm not a part of their family. I'm not a part of their, franchise like that, which I understood all that. I have no gripes about it. I was hoping I would, do the storyline with AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose, who is now John Moxley. I know. And like they would send me down there and I'd be there for 10 years. But once they said, oh, no, you're up here for the long haul. I was like, oh, okay. And I knew in the back of my head, man, like, I'd much rather gone down there and been a part of this much longer. But,